Congressman Paul, you often have a different view of these issues, so I'll ask a vastly different question. Should government, in your view, have any role at all in stimulating the economy like this?
Well, sure, indirectly. They shouldn't stimulate it by interfering in the market rate of interest. That's where our basic problem comes from. And when you do that, you get into these problems, and then everybody wants to solve the problem by printing more money and spending more money and asking the Federal Reserve to, lower interest rates. And that just makes the problem that much worse. The government does have a responsibility, but it's supposed to lower taxes, get rid of regulations, and devise a monetary policy that makes some sense. But to continue to say that we just appropriate more money, which is more deficit, and then expect us either to borrow it or expect the Federal Reserve to monetize it, it makes our problems worse. Just look at what's happening today. The dollar is crashing. And why? And Tim there suggests that we think of the economy, but not in foreign policy. You can't do that. They're one and the same. That's where all the money's going. We're spending nearly $1 trillion a year overseas maintaining this empire. And then there's never been a war fought without inflation and destruction and devaluation of a currency. And this is what we're doing today to ourselves, is we're literally spending ourselves into oblivion. But nobody here is willing to even suggest that we cut something overseas. But we have to. We don't need to cut anything here at home. I'd like to see things frozen. I'd like to see massive tax cuts. But we need deregulation. I was one of 3 people that voted against Sarbanes-Oxley. I knew that would be a problem, and it is a problem to the financial markets. So this is the kind of thing we need. We need the government out of the way, but it should have sound money, low taxes, less regulations, and a sensible policy where we're not wasting our money overseas.
Congressman Paul, please take 30 seconds of your own.
Well, I think that we can't run on that program. I think what we have to run on is an old-fashioned Republican program. I can't be identified with this. I'm known as the taxpayer's best friend. I've never voted for a tax increase, and I voted for the least amount of spending. So I'm not part of that crowd. But what we need to do is reinstate Republican principles. Then we could run on it, but we have drifted a long way from that. And that is because of all these programs. But there was never my participation in this. I was waving a flag the whole time saying, slow up, slow up. This isn't going well. And here we are. We're at the verge of bankruptcy. We're moving into a new era, believe it or not. With the dollar and our economy and the world economy, this is a new era.
Congressman Paul, was the war a good idea, worth the blood and treasure that we have spent?
It was a very bad idea, and it wasn't worth it. The Al-Qaeda wasn't there then, they're there now. There were no weapons of mass destruction, had nothing to do with 9/11, there was no aggression. This decision on policy was made in 1998 under the previous administration because they called for the removal of Saddam Hussein. It wasn't worth it, and it's a sad story because we started that war, and we should never be a country that starts war needlessly.
Congressman Paul, a question for one of your colleagues on stage.
My question is for Senator McCain. This is an economic question that I wanted to ask. It has to do with the President's Working Group on Financial Markets. I'd like to know what your opinion is of this and whether you would keep it in place, what their role would be, if you would get rid of this group. And if you kept the group, would you make sure we would see some sunlight and know what they're doing and how they're being involved in our markets?
Well, obviously, we'd like to see more sunshine. But I, as president, as every other president, rely primarily on my Secretary of the Treasury, on my Council of Economic Advisors, on the head of that. I would rely on a circle that I have had developed over many years of people like Jack Kemp, Phil Gramm, Warren Rudman, Pete Peterson, and the Concord Group. I have a process of leadership, Ron, that is sort of an inclusive one that I have developed, a circle of acquaintances and people that are supporters and friends of mine who I've worked with for many, many years.
So you'd get rid of this
remember group? Back in 1982 when Phil Gramm and Warren Rudman and Graham Latta and all of those people got the first real tax cuts done, the first real restraints in taxes. I was there. You were there. And I rely on those people to a much larger degree than any, quote, formal organization, although the Secretary of Treasury is obviously one of the key and important posts that I would have.
Dr. Paul, Congressman Paul, I'd like to talk about Social Security. The last time you ran for president and Libertarian Party candidate, you filled out a questionnaire asking about Social Security, and you said, quote, abolish it. There are 3.5 million people in Florida who rely on Social Security payments. Are you still in favor of abolishing Social Security?
Yes, but not overnight. Matter of fact, my program is the only one that is going to be able to take care of the elderly. I'd like to get the young people out of it, just the young generation, because there's no money there, and they're going to have to pay 50 years and they're not going to get anything. There's no money there. Now I'm saying I'd take care of all the elderly, all those who are dependent, but I would save the money from this wild spending overseas. We can save hundreds of billions of dollars and still take care of the elderly. Right now, they're getting behind because they're having a 10 to 12% inflation rate, and we give them a 2% increase. So they're really hurting. I don't want taxes on the Social Security benefits that they receive. I have a bill in that would secure the trust fund where none of that money could be spent in the general revenues. So in many ways, though, the goal would be to get us out of this program that is a failure. It doesn't work and is going to bankrupt this country, that the only way you can do that is save enough money, tide the people over, let the young people get out, because they're going to be paying all these years and they're not going to get anything. So ironically, I, who defend the position that, the federal government probably should have never been involved, I probably have the only program that would really help the elderly, because the way we're going now, the money's not going to be there. There's no way these cost of living increases are ever going to keep up with their benefits. Are never going to keep up with their cost of living. They're decreasing. I say my program has a better chance of helping them than any other one.
Thank you, Governor. Congressman Paul, the other campaigns have said to you that their worry is that you won't stick to your party. If you look at yourself and see yourself someday as unelectable, perhaps you would launch a third-party movement and hurt the Republicans.
My biggest concern is they won't stick to the party principles that Republicans stood for so long. And, being conservative and balanced budgets and limited government and individual freedom. No, I have no intention of going into another party. I've been elected 10 times as a Republican. I was from a Republican family, and no, I don't plan to do that. I wish they would worry about it, just in case. But no, I have no intention of doing that, but it might keep them on their toes. But no, I just think that the Republican Party has a problem because we don't act like Republicans. And we talked about this earlier, that we're spending money that we don't have. We run up these deficits. Instead of, in the old days, we used to be against the Department of Education. Now we doubled the size of it. No child left behind. Even the Democrats are running against some of the things that we do. And they used to love that kind of stuff. And it used to be that we used to stop the wars. We stopped the Korean War. We were supposed to stop the Vietnam War that the Democrats started. And here we're starting these wars. So that's why we've lost our way. So I don't think it's a matter of me leaving the Republican Party. If they would look toward what we're doing and the number of people who want to come into the party, they shouldn't be obstructing us. They should welcome. The party's getting smaller. Yet they say, oh, you're too strict on the Constitution. Why should us who believe strictly in the Constitution and rule of law be excluded? That's the way a lot of the people that gather around my candidacy think they're being treated. So I would say, why don't we have a big tent and welcome those of us who believe in liberty and believe in the Constitution? That's what it's all about, and that's what the Republican Party used to stand for.
Congressman, thank you. That will have to be the, before we